Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Robert, and I want to talk about something that I never thought would happen to me. Before I got married, I used to hear older couples talk about how things change once kids come into the picture. They'd say that the passion fades, that intimacy takes a back seat to diapers, school runs, and endless responsibilities. I always thought that won't be me. I believed that if two people loved each other, they'd make it work, no matter what. But now I see exactly what they meant. I've been married to my wife, Sylvia, for 3 years. In the beginning, things were great: affection, closeness, that deep connection that made us feel like we were in our own little world. But after our son was born, everything changed. It's been 2 years since we last had sex. That's not an exaggeration. 2 full years. At first, I tried to be patient. I thought she was just exhausted from the pregnancy, that she needed time. But months turned into a year, and a year turned into 2. Anytime I tried to get close to her, she would pull away. There was always an excuse. She was tired, she had work in the morning, she wasn't in the mood. Eventually, I stopped asking because, honestly, being rejected over and over again does something to you. It makes you feel like a burden. And it wasn't just the lack of intimacy that hurt. It was the way she started treating me, like another piece of furniture in the house. Her patience with me grew thinner. It felt like all of her energy went into her job and our son, and I was just there, a provider, a roommate, someone she barely acknowledged unless it was about bills or responsibilities. There was no warmth, no affection. At some point, I started to wonder if there was someone else. It's not like I had proof. Sylvia wasn't acting sneaky, and I never caught her in any lies. But when someone loses all interest in you that fast, you start to question things. I checked her phone a few times when she left it lying around. I looked through her social media, paid attention to her schedule. But nothing. No suspicious messages, no sudden late nights at work, no new habits that screamed affair. It left me stuck in a strange place. If she wasn't cheating, then what was this? Had she just stopped loving me? Had I done something wrong? Or was this just what marriage turns into after a while? I kept trying to convince myself that things would change. That if I waited long enough, she'd come back to me. I had no idea what was waiting for me ahead. My wife, Sylvia, has a best friend, Rose, who had always been around. But I started noticing things about her. Unlike Sylvia, Rose was unmarried, living a carefree life, always talking about how she wasn't in a rush to settle down. At first, she seemed harmless, just a friend who visited from time to time. But after Sylvia started shutting me out, Rose started acting differently toward me. I wasn't sure if I was imagining it at first, but the signs were there. Then came the day that made me question everything. One afternoon, I was home alone when I heard a knock at the door. It was Rose. That in itself wasn't strange, but what caught my attention was the fact that she had come looking for Sylvia when she knew she wasn't home. How did she know I was alone? I had no idea. Maybe it was a coincidence, or maybe it wasn't. When I told her Sylvia wasn't around, I expected her to just leave, but instead, she asked, "Can I still come in?" The way she said it felt off, like there was something else behind those words. There was a pause between us, a moment of silence, where I could feel the weight of what was happening. My gut told me to say no. So I did. I told her I was about to head out, and she nodded, gave me a small smile, and walked away. But as I closed the door, something inside me told me that this wasn't the end of it. One evening, I just wanted to feel close to my wife again. I was tired of pretending it didn't bother me. So, as she sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, I reached out, resting my hand gently on her thigh. She didn't even look up. Instead, she let out a quiet sigh, almost as if she was annoyed, then removed my hand and shifted away from me. The message was clear. I was unwanted. For a moment, I just sat there. I wasn't expecting her to suddenly change overnight, but I had hoped that she would meet me halfway and realize how much her distance was hurting me. But it was clear. So I asked her, plain and direct, "Why do you keep blocking me every time I try to be close to you?" My voice wasn't angry, just tired. She finally looked at me with a blank expression, like my question barely deserved a response. Then she spoke. "I don't owe you anything." That was it. I felt something inside me snap in a quiet, sinking realization. I had spent years trying to be patient, trying to be understanding. I made excuses for her distance, convinced myself that she just needed time. But it's painfully clear. She wasn't just struggling with intimacy. She didn't care. She didn't see me as her husband anymore. I didn't argue. I just nodded. If she wanted a roommate instead of a husband, then that's exactly what she would get. From that moment on, I stopped trying. No more affection, no more effort. I wasn't going to beg for something that should come naturally between two people who love each other. If she had already checked out, then maybe it was time for me to do the same. I was scrolling through Instagram one evening, killing time, when I saw a new post from Rose. She had just uploaded a couple pictures, those selfies where everything looks effortless and beautiful. I hesitated for a second, then reacted to it. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from her. "Hey, you, didn't expect to see you here. How's life?" Just like that, conversation started. I stared at my screen for a moment, debating whether to respond. I could have ignored it. Should have. But I didn't. Instead, I typed something casual back. At first, it was nothing serious. Just small talk. "How have you been? How's work? How's Sylvia?" I played along, keeping my answers short. She, on the other hand, wasn't holding back. She was chatty, more than usual. Compliments started slipping into the conversation. "You've always had a great sense of humor. I don't know why Sylvia complains about you so much. You seem like a great guy." I told myself it was just friendly talk. The messages didn't stop that night. Over the next few days, they became a regular thing. What started as quick replies turned into longer conversations. We started messaging late at night when the house was quiet, when Sylvia was asleep beside me, unaware of what was happening. It felt easy, natural, like talking to someone who actually wanted to listen, who wasn't irritated by my presence, who didn't sigh when I tried to start a conversation. With Rose, there were no cold shoulders, no dismissive replies. She was engaged, laughing at my jokes, sharing things about her life, and making me feel seen. I found myself waiting for her message before going to bed. And it wasn't long before she started saying things like, "I bet we'd have fun if we hung out, just the two of us." I should have stopped. I should have seen it for what it was. But I didn't. When Rose comes over to see my wife, it's like I don't exist. She barely looks at me, never acknowledges my presence beyond a polite nod, and keeps her conversations strictly between herself and Sylvia. But it's a completely different story when we chat. Her texts are flirty, teasing, and filled with a kind of attention I haven't received from my own wife in years. It's like she's playing two different roles, one in front of Sylvia, where she acts indifferent, and another in private, where she makes it clear she wants something more. She would ask when I was free to hang out, and when I gave vague, dismissive answers, she would always find a way to steer the conversation back to the idea of us spending time alone. One particular weekend, when Sylvia was out of town visiting her parents with our child, Rose wasted no time making her move. She sent a message saying she could come over and help cook or clean, as if she was just being thoughtful. But when I declined, she quickly switched tactics, saying she could just keep me company, so I wouldn't feel lonely. That offer didn't sit right with me either. It felt calculated, like she was waiting for this exact moment when I was alone. I rejected that offer too, making up an excuse about having work to do. It felt like a test, like she was seeing how far she could push before I gave in. And the more my wife continued to shut me out, the more tempting Rose's attention became. One day, after a rough day at the office, Rose invited me over. I hesitated at first, but I told myself I just needed someone to vent to. So I went. The moment I stepped into her apartment, I could tell this wasn't just a friendly visit. The place smelled different, like candles and something sweet in the air. She had dim lighting, soft music playing in the background, and she was dressed in a way that made it clear she had planned for this. Still, I convinced myself that I was in control. We sat down, and I started talking about Sylvia, about how distant she had become, how she barely looked at me anymore, let alone touched me. I told Rose how I had tried over and over to fix things, to bring back the closeness, but it was like hitting a brick wall. My wife had shut me out completely. Rose listened, nodding, her eyes filled with something that looked like sympathy. She moved closer, placing her hand on my knee, and said words I hadn't heard in years. You deserve to feel wanted. That one sentence broke something inside me. One moment, we were talking, and the next, she was kissing me. It wasn't slow, it wasn't hesitant, it was urgent, like she had been waiting for this just as much as I had. When you've been starving for something for so long, and someone finally offers it to you, logic doesn't stand a chance. I won't lie, Rose is a very beautiful lady and very attractive. So before I could think, we were in her bedroom, tangled in each other. It was quick, almost desperate, but for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt alive again. I felt seen. I felt wanted. And as much as I hated to admit it, I had missed this. But as soon as it was over, reality hit me. I stared at the ceiling, breathing heavily, my mind racing with everything I had just done. This wasn't who I wanted to be. This wasn't how I wanted to fix the emptiness in my marriage. I turned to Rose, ready to tell her that this couldn't happen again, that it was a mistake. But before I could even open my mouth, she smiled, traced a finger down my chest, and whispered, "This is just the beginning for us." To her, this wasn't just a one-time thing. It was the start of something. But to me, it was a line I never thought I'd cross. And now that I had, I wasn't sure if I could ever undo it. After that night, Rose started pushing the boundaries. One day, she asked if I had ever tried using ice during sex. Confused, I asked her what she meant, and that's when she started explaining. She described how she wanted to be tied up and have a jar filled with ice and other things involved. Things I wasn't even sure I understood. She didn't just stop there. She had ideas, and they weren't just limited to a bedroom. She wanted us to use my matrimonial bed, the same bed I used to share with my wife before everything went cold. She thought it would be exciting, like a final act of revenge against Sylvia for rejecting me. And if that wasn't enough, she suggested we try it inside a car, parked somewhere risky, just to add to the thrill. I didn't know how to respond. It wasn't just that her requests were wild. I had never explored anything like this before. Sure, I had missed being wanted. I had craved intimacy for so long, but this was something different. Yet part of me couldn't deny the pull, the curiosity. Deep down, I kept wondering, what did Rose see in me? Rose seemed obsessed. She wasn't just interested, she was relentless. While I tried to slow things down, she pushed harder, her messages becoming more graphic, more demanding. I thought I was in control, but the more I tried to slow her down, the more it felt like she was the one controlling me. One night, I woke up to the sound of muffled sobs. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but as my mind cleared, I realized the soft, shaky breaths were coming from Sylvia. My eyes adjusted to the dim light of our bedroom, and when I turned to face her, I saw her sitting up in bed, my phone clutched tightly in her hands, her shoulders trembling as she tried to suppress her cries. My heart started pounding. There was no doubt about what she had seen. The messages, the calls, everything. For a split second, I just stared at her, unsure of how to react. She had no right to play the victim. I reached out and firmly took my phone from her grasp. I unlocked the screen to confirm what I already knew. The chat with Rose was open. "Why are you crying?" My voice came out steady. "You pushed me away. For 2 years, you made it clear I was nothing more than a roommate to you. So why does it hurt you now that someone else was willing to give me the attention you refused to?" I expected her to get defensive, to lash out and deflect like she always did whenever I brought up our problems. But this time, she didn't. Instead, she covered her face with her hands and let out a deep, shaky breath, like she had been holding something in for far too long. And then, finally, she spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "It was Rose," she admitted. "She kept telling me to do it. She told me to stop being affectionate, to stop giving in to you. She said if I pulled away long enough, you'd give up, and she said that when I will remain in control." I stared at her. I wanted to say something, to call her out for being so easily manipulated, but my mind was racing too fast to form a response. It all made sense now. The complete lack of intimacy. The way she had slowly built a wall between us and let our marriage crumble. without even putting up a fight. And Rose, her best friend, the woman who had been acting like a supportive friend to Sylvia while secretly luring me into her trap. Sylvia reached for my hand, her fingers trembling. I didn't know, Robert. I swear, I didn't see it until now. I thought I was keeping control of my own marriage. But she was controlling me. Her voice broke on the last word, and for the first time in a long time, I saw my wife, the woman I had fallen in love with, breaking down in front of me, realizing just how much damage had been done. But the question was, could it be undone? I sat on the edge of the bed. My wife, the same woman who had spent years pushing me away, suddenly begged me not to leave her. Through her tears, she kept saying she was sorry. Over and over again. She told me she had been selfish, that she had taken me for granted, and that she had convinced herself that I would always be there no matter how she treated me. But now, seeing what had happened, seeing how easily another woman had stepped in when she left that space empty, she realized how wrong she had been. She said she didn't want to lose me. She didn't want our family to fall apart over this. I didn't know how to feel. As much as I wanted to punish her with my silence, the truth was, I still loved her. I didn't know if we could fix this, but I knew I had to at least try. I took a deep breath and made my decision. First, I pulled up Rose's number and blocked her without hesitation. I deleted the entire chat, every message, every picture, every trace of what we had done. Then, I looked at Sylvia and told her that if we were going to try to fix this, it wouldn't be easy. We had to put in the work, both of us. She nodded, already agreeing before I could even finish. She suggested therapy, and for once I didn't argue. Maybe we needed someone to help us untangle everything that had happened. Maybe we needed a space where we could talk without all the anger and resentment getting in the way. We didn't say much after that. There wasn't anything left to say. Looking back at everything that happened, I've come to realize just how fragile a marriage can be when the foundation starts to crack. If only one person is trying while the other is pulling away, resentment builds, and before you know it, someone else is ready to fill the space that was left empty. That's exactly what happened to me. One of the biggest mistakes was allowing a third party to have influence over my marriage. I didn't even realize it at first, but my wife was being fed toxic advice from someone who was supposed to be her friend. Someone who had her own agenda. Rose wasn't just giving my wife bad advice. She was actively pushing her to ruin our relationship so she could take her place. And my wife, whether she knew it or not, let it happen. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can't let outsiders dictate what happens in your marriage. Because not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you. Some people are just waiting for an opportunity to step in. Another hard lesson? Emotional distance is just as dangerous as physical cheating. When the connection between you and your partner fades, even if it's unintentional, it creates space for betrayal. At first, I wasn't even looking for anything outside my marriage. I just wanted my wife to love me the way she used to. But the more she shut me out, the easier it became for me to seek comfort elsewhere. And Rose? She knew that. She saw the gap between us and took full advantage of it. At the time, I was starving for affection, for attention, for anything that made me feel wanted again. I've also realized that when one person stops trying, the other will eventually stop too. That's just reality. No one wants to feel like they're in a one-sided marriage. When my wife rejected me over and over again, I reached a point where I just gave up. I told myself, if she wants a roommate, I'll be a roommate. But the thing is, a marriage can't survive like that. Someone else will always be waiting to step in where your partner has checked out. That's exactly what happened with Rose. If my wife had been present in our relationship, Rose wouldn't have had the opportunity to get close to me. But the more my wife pushed me away, the more tempting it became to let someone else in. At the end of the day, marriage only works if both people are putting in effort. If you're in a relationship and you feel like you're the only one trying, you need to have an honest conversation with your partner. Because ignoring the problem doesn't make it go away. It just leaves room for something worse to happen. So now, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you believe this marriage can be saved? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt pushed away by someone you loved? Or have you ever let someone else get too close when you shouldn't have? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.